Hello, my name is Amy Peeler. I'm the Kenneth T. Wessner Chair of Biblical Studies, Professor of New Testament at Wheaton College.
Dr. Amy Peeler. Amy, welcome back to Exegetically Speaking.
Always good to be with you here.
This is fun. I always enjoy these conversations because I get a chance to learn from some wonderful people who are doing great things. Now, you've written a book, and it's been published of late, called Women and the Gender of God, and that book is done fabulously, I think.
Thank you. It's been quite a ride since it came out last year, and grateful for the conversations it's elicited.
A lot of podcasts on that, and we encourage you to go out and buy your copy. We've bought several copies for the Linear Theological Library, both the one in Houston and the one in Oxford, England.
Amazing.
So,
well, thank you.
I don't think that one's gotten there yet, but it's on its way. You're writing a second volume now for this in this kind of series. What's the new volume going to be about?
Wow, that's a big claim. I'm not sure if it's a series, but
Okay,
at least
all
it's
right,
2 volumes.
2 volumes, okay.
When I first wrote the manuscript, I had a lot of material, and the editor and I decided that it would be better to focus on Gospels in the first volume, and now Paul in the second. So I have been spending my time with Paul, primarily Galatians of late.
Now, you spent a lot of time in Hebrews.
Exactly.
And now you're going to cover the whole New Testament
We'll
before
see.
long.
It's a dangerous thing, yes.
It really is. So how do you like Paul after studying the Gospels?
I have always loved Paul and knew that I wanted to work in the epistles. I chose Hebrews because I loved it and because the field is not quite as crowded. So I have to admit, I come back to Paul with a bit of trepidation. It's intense scholarship, but I do believe the work that I've done allows me to contribute something, I hope, of value to the conversation.
Oh, I'm sure that will happen. Today we're going to look at Galatians chapter 1, verse 16, and a couple of other places in Galatians as well. It's one of the key Pauline books. One of the Germans call it the Hauptbriefe, the major letters of Paul, right? Major letters. So this is a very cool book. So tell us about Galatians 1:16. What's going on there?
Well, we do get this story of Paul's transformation by virtue of his encounter with Jesus Christ, one of the places where he gives us his autobiography. Something about 1:16 leaped out to me. God revealed his son in me. I think as I was thinking about the Damascus Road experience, you might expect Paul to say, God revealed his son to me, right? The vision and the light and the speech of Jesus to him. But in me is a very internalized kind of idea. And as Paul goes on to say, then Christ in him allowed him to preach the gospel out to others. So it's like God was pouring into him and then he was giving out to others. The reason why that particularly jumped out to me is that I had been spending my time in 3 and 4, where Paul frequently uses pregnancy or maternal themes to talk about their identity in Christ. Absolutely, he talks about adoption, but he also talks about new birth. This is the whole complicated Sarah and Hagar metaphor.
Yes.
They have a new mom. But I found myself thinking, and I'm influenced here, I need to give honor to whom honor is due. I took a class with Beverly Gaventa in grad school, and she's written an excellent book, Our Mother, St. Paul. So there are others who have reflected on this. I'm certainly not the first. But led in that way by her, I thought, is it the case that Paul even might picture himself in a maternal way? God revealed Christ in him, and then we might say he birthed Christ into the world by preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
Now, someone might say, oh, that's kind of fanciful, and why would Paul do that? That doesn't make good sense. But I believe there's support for it if we move forward into 4. In 4, he's kind of worrying, not just kind of, he's very worried about this congregation. He says in 4:11, I'm fearful that I might have labored for you in vain. Now, the word for labor there, kapiao, is a normal word for work, right? That we can labor in anything. But where it gets interesting is that if you move to 4:19, he addresses them first as my children, and then he uses odeno. And this is a very particular kind of labor. This is labor pains in the process of birthing. He said, again, I am laboring until Christ might be formed in you. So I think it is correct to join these together. And again, it is attention to particular Greek words that allowed me to see these connections, both the prepositions that Paul is using and the verbs and their connotations and definitions, to say, I think he views himself maternally. This, of course, is supported in other places where he talks about himself as giving his congregations milk to drink, almost as if he is the nursemaid for them. Maybe one final point that I find quite interesting is notice that we have the preposition in again in 4:19, that Christ might be formed in you.
In you.
And I wonder if he's replicating that process as he received the gospel internally, birthed Christ into the world through evangelizing the Galatians. So too does he wish them to picture themselves as Christ has been planted within them, the good news, and they need to give it out to others. So they too are cast as mothers. The reason that I got started on all of this is that probably your listeners will know this is the one place in all of Paul's writings that he says explicitly Jesus has a mother. And this is in Galatians 4:4. God sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the law. So I believe that Paul's knowledge of the way in which the incarnation happened led him to conceive of all of the gospel through this pregnancy maternal metaphor, and he employs it for both himself and the congregation he's ministering to.
So the gospel is being incarnated
Exactly.
in
Beautifully
their lives.
said. Yes.
And then expressed through them
Yes.
as they give birth to it into the world.
Exactly. And that he
Really
is saying this
interesting way of seeing
to
it.
a mixed audience of men and women. He will call all of them the sons of God. And he will say to all of them, you are mothers of Christ to the world.
Wow. Really interesting reading of these texts and bringing together these ideas. Dr. Amy Peeler, thanks for being with us today on Exegetically Speaking.
Glad to be here. Look forward to keeping reading and talking next time.
All right. It's good to see Amy Peeler again here on the Wheaton College campus. She's doing great work here, both at the undergraduate level as well as the graduate level. Thanks to Amy for making time to be with us today. She's written a terrific book called Women and the Gender of God. Make sure you check that out as well. Thanks to our team here at Wheaton College, John Lonsma, Rebecca Larson, and Ian Rosine for making this podcast possible. They're really crucial to it. Thanks as well to my wife who's helping to record these here on the Wheaton College campus. Her name is Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. And if you want to subscribe to this podcast, make sure you do that while you're on your favorite platform. Tell a friend about it. We'd love to see our population and downloads grow over time because we're getting the word out. Thanks for being with us today. Another great podcast is coming your way in just 7 days. Thanks for listening.